2,
One.
orgasm.
That was the first thing that's on the stream. Wow.
Awesome. All right.
What a way to start the stream.
All right, tonight on Burning Subjects, I buy a reasonably priced car, call it Little Simp. Dan kills all the foamers and freezes them in fucking carbonite. Jim resurrects Richard Jensen only to beat the shit out of him. And Andrew runs over a singer in the 769.
All this and more tonight on Burning Subjects.
Whoever can make it.
And then Ryan, and then
Oh yeah, Lena.
and then Ryan eats so many Cheetos that that his fingers turn into them. I don't fucking know.
Needless to say, also in more accurate stuff, I'm talking about a northern that wasn't called a northern by its respective railroad. Nudge.
Yes, but
Jim calls it a northern because in his eyes, every 484 is a northern.
you know what?
I couldn't hear more.
In the USA, 484s are like the Pacific in the UK. But anyway, that's beside the point. Welcome back to Burning Subjects. This is episode 26, and today we're going to be talking about railroad celebrity Ross Rowland. Well, celebrity, sort of. Nowadays, he's kind of
Let me get what I completely forgot to give you a perfect thumbnail, Andrew.
I already got a thumbnail that's been sort of prepared.
Let me check. I see.
It's 2100, isn't it?
Yes. AKA the one that didn't commit spontaneous combustion.
But anyway, we are going to start on. We need to start all the way at the roots with Ross Rowland. So he was born in 1980. So
No.
not 80, 1940. 1940. But either way, for some reason,
I already told Lena that we were all blithering idiots.
for some reason, Ross Rowland is older than most steam locomotives nowadays. Isn't that ironic?
Well, he might be older than all the locomotives he has operated in the preservation era.
Yeah.
Well, was he born in the 1920s? Because 2101, started out.
It was the 21 Northerns will
I'll be getting into those in a little bit.
Rebuilt.
But either way, let's start off with the G5s. With
Hold on. That's not exactly where his excursion career started.
Actually, where did it start? I forgot.
Wasn't it like with Nickel Plate 759 or something?
Well, 1278 was the first one to pull a high iron company excursion 66.
So who's gonna start us off? Like, no one.
Oh, I don't know that much about the guy himself. Hold on! Will you guys listen to me? Shut up!
Okay.
I have a DVD. I did rip it because, it's about Ross Rowland. This is Ross Rowland, Giant of Steam. Let me see here. Picked him up and took him to the station to watch the New York Central. Okay, so basically, Ross Rowland, when he was 3 years old, he was introduced into Steam basically via the New York Central. He grew up in New York City and all that stuff. Apparently, in New Jersey, his family moved to New Jersey, and was born then and never left. Apparently, he was. I think he was able to actually, go to the C&J Roundhouse, and he was actually trusted enough to actually pull some of the locomotives into the roundhouse or out of the roundhouse or clean the locomotives and all that stuff at an age of 8 or 9 years old, And let me see here. At the age of about 17, at the age of 17, Ross stumbled across a little basically, Ross Rowland basically became a commodity futures broker, or Wall Street broker, whatever you want to call him. And oh my God! Well, as I was trying to say before my phone interrupted me, one day he was on a trip back through New Jersey or whatever, and he stumbled upon a little Shay locomotive near the highway. This Shay locomotive, this locomotive was a narrow gauge engine. I believe it was on the
near the highway. As we were driving down Route 9 Freehold, I saw this small Shay steam engine live next to the highway, and of course I pulled over to find out what was going on, and I learned that it was a small group of volunteers who activated this engine, and we're running it up and down on a couple hundred feet of track.
So yeah, this group that was running the Shay was known as the Pine Creek Railroad. So this Shay, I believe, number 9, was the first locomotive that Ross Rowland ever got to be able to operate. And I believe that, he even
secure the purchase of the Flemington branch of Pennsylvania Railroad. Our mainstay engine at that time was number 60, the 2L from the Great Western Sugar Company, and a great little engine. My first mainline locomotive.
See, I think he stuck with the Pine Creek Railroad for a few years, but then he went over to, I believe, the Black River and Western when it was just started up with, the 280 number 60. And, well, I think in 1966 or 65, he approached the CNJ to see if they would allow him to organize a series of steam excursions. And so basically the deal was that, he would find a locomotive that would meet the CNJ's mechanical standards, and, they would rent him another number of passenger coaches to use on the excursion. And, well, in 1966, the High Iron Company was born. Basically, the first excursion, they had 2 fan trips run in October of that year using F. Nelson Blount's 1278 or 127 for those trips. And I believe for the 1967 season or 1968 season, Ross basically leased 1238 and 1286 from George Hart. George Hart, I don't know who that guy is, but 1238 and 1286 were used for a while. However, I believe on some of the excursions in the 1968 season, 1238 and 1286 were actually on emergency loan to the city of Reading, Pennsylvania. Oh my God! Why does my phone keep ringing?
You're not interested in anyone selling phone vibrate if I were you.
Stop ringing, you stupid phone! No.
This is why I would actually recommend just turning off the ringtones.
There, I turned it off. God damn. It's probably a fucking telemarketer. It was from California.
See, someone wants to sell you something, but you're not interested. 0%.
But as I was saying, the High Iron Company had to, basically the 1238 and 1286 were being used to furnish heat to the central business district because their heating plant had broken down. So they had to get 1278 and then Strasbourg number 90, the most overrated decapod in history, to pull the excursion.
Yeah.
I believe on one of the excursions, let me get it. I think one of the first interviews with Ross Rowland was ever, I think on-camera interview, I believe, at some point in 1968, out of Scranton, Pennsylvania. I don't know. Let me see here.
And a crew about to interview passengers and members of the crew. The program was shot on 16mm black and white sound film. At Jim Thorpe, the TV crew shot what is believed to be the first on-camera interview with Ross Rowland. The 28-year-old engineer spoke a bit about himself and what it's like to run a steam engine in the diesel world of the late 1960s.
I'm a commodity futures broker, trading primarily in silver, copper, and platinum contracts. And weekends and days off, I railroad, as you see me doing today, the steam engine here and the one up front there. We're having a little problem today with the fire, so we're running a little late, but I think we got it licked now. One of the problems is that the engines aren't used as much as they should be, so it's like a car that doesn't get a chance to get broken in. They get a little stiff, and when you go to use them, you have to give them a few hours to break in, so she's breaking in now. That's the problem we're having. But basically, I think the people are having a good time. We have a beautiful day today, and we'll win eventually. It'll take a while.
And, well, the success of the excursions on the High Iron Company was actually pretty overwhelming. So, the G5s were just, they weren't very powerful. They weren't powerful enough to handle the longer passenger trains, as they were fairly small Pacifics. But, I guess you could say the same problem plagued Steamtown before, or like 20-something years later.
But we're not talking about Steamtown. We're talking about Ross.
I'm going off on a limb, as I was saying, but they needed a more powerful locomotive. They went to Steamtown once again, or Ross went to Steamtown and made a deal with F. Nelson Blount shortly before Blount's untimely death. And, well, he basically made a deal that they would lease the Nickel Plate 759 for about 5 years, and then in return for its use, they would donate $1 per ticket to Steamtown.
That's it. That's what they get in return.
And, well, they, took it to the Conneaut, Ohio shops from its last overhaul, which were then owned by the Norfolk and Western at that time. And the engine, it powered its first, High Iron Company excursion to Buffalo, New York. I believe there was some, I think there was also a excursion to Roanoke, Virginia, of all places. And, well, the 759 was actually, I guess, the turning point for Ross Rowland. It was the first big mainline locomotive he was able to use.
It was basically like the locomotive that put him on the map.
Big excursions anywhere in the country, pretty much.
Well, mostly anywhere in the country because she's a coal burner.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, in late 1968, he thought, Ross Rowland always thought that, the story of, the Golden Spike and the Transcontinental Railroad being built was a very undertold story. And you don't really hear much about it, because, it took the better part, before railroads, it took the better part of a whole year to traverse the entire country from the east to the west, or vice versa. And by the time the railways had come in, it was possible within a week to get, from one coast to the other. I mean, nowadays with planes, you can just go in there within a day. But, so he decided to use 759 for a excursion called the Golden Spike Centennial Limited, which, let me see here. Basically, he had three. Also, there were three baggage cars on the train as well, which were used to tell the past, present, and future of American railroading. And so 759 was the main mode of power for a good portion of the trip. However, not all the way. This was partially more than likely because it was a coal burn. So yeah, it basically, I believe there were like a million and a half people that went to see that basically sat trackside to see the train rolling by. Well, half the western half of the train was pulled by Union Pacific 844 when it was still 8444, like from Omaha, Nebraska, or something like that. Although I actually think like one of the Centennial, like the DDA 40Xs, actually pulled the train.
But now
here's it.
For the sad part of 759.
Well, actually, after the High Iron Company, after the Limited, basically. Well, actually, one of the celebrities that, visited and rode the train, the Limited, was John Wayne. And, well, he actually expressed to Ross how appropriate it would be to run a locomotive like the Golden Spike Centennial Limited to celebrate America's bicentennial, which was then only 7 years away. And thus, the American Freedom Train was born. But, after the Limited, 759 was, just powering more of Steamtown's regular excursion trains.
And you forgot one thing.
What?
Didn't 759 pull the last Pocahontas train for the NW?
Right.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, it's also actually somewhat convincingly disguised as what a Norfolk and Western Burke would be, even though it was the Vince American, which was supposed to be something to CNO.
Like, what if the Norfolk and Western bought the nickel plate during the steam era, like 1950 or whatever?
Ooh.
I guess. Or what if it ended up under the Vince Swergen umbrella? Similar sort of scenario, I guess.
After the lease agreement ended in like 72 or 73, Ross Rowland leased engine number 2102 from who was it? Like, I don't know who it was, but it was Steam Tours in Ohio. Oh my God. Oh, goodness. But anyway, it was leased from there. I think, it was cosmetically disguised as, DNH 302 for a while during some parts of the season. And, well, an interesting twist of fate, I guess. I'm not so sure. But, 1278 was able to power more excursions for the High Iron Company, but this time it was disguised as DNA 653. The final High Iron Company excursion was basically, I believe, Ross basically leased 759 on a short-term basis to promote the Freedom Train on, as a bit of a promotional tool for the Freedom Train. In July of 1973, I'm not so sure, but and that's more or less the end of the High Iron Company.
Because now, Stephen, talk about 759's end, I guess. Well,
759's fate.
Yeah.
Remember, DNH grew up.
Basically, Steamtown did use 759 for some of their own excursions or some of the, museum trains out of Bellows Falls, Vermont on occasions. But, after that, they decided for some reason to store the locomotive in a roundhouse in Rouse's Point, New York that was owned by the Delaware and Hudson. Or somebody apparently decided not to drain the boiler of water. Why Steamtown didn't go ahead and do that is beyond me. I mean, so basically the water froze and some shit was broken inside of the boiler. Steamtown sued D&H. They tried to fucking rebuild the locomotive, but, it was too much of a hassle, so 759 is never going to operate again.
Especially because 765 has taken her spotlight.
Most overrated Berkshire of all time.
Permission to say something about 765?
Yes.
Apparently,
No.
That's all, Stephen. I'm going to say it anyway. Apparently, at some point, it has briefly masqueraded as a New York Central Berg. Like just as itself, if it was owned by the New York Central.
Well, that's not a very good cosplay then, if they didn't renumber it.
Okay, but now that we've talked about the beginnings of Ross Roland and 759, it's my turn to talk about the Reading T1s. Well, more or less one Reading T1. And which, for this, I have actually brought my Broadway Limited Reading T1. If I can even...
Wait, what's that you're eating?
Chicken
Carrot tots?
Hot Pockets.
Carrot tots?
Hot Pockets. It's not Hot Pockets, but it's we just put maybe there, that's better. Oops. Okay, but anyway,
There we go.
this Ross Roland is often, well, situated with the Reading T1s, and well, that's why today I've brought my best HO scale model, in my opinion, from Broadway Limited. It's a Reading T1. This one specifically 2100, obviously. Real anthracite coal in the tender, brass fittings, brass bell, and when this thing's fired up, it has, well, booming sound in the tender that'll make you feel like you're really there. But
so it's more like when it's turned on, because it's an electric model. But whatever.
Anyway, though, to the point though, Ross Roland, after the 759 had its fate meet, the Ross Roland for the American Freedom Train, because 4449, as we all know, was too tall to go around certain areas where they needed to bring the train. And so he wanted to find a coal-fired steam locomotive to do the job. And what other than the greatest coal-fired steam locomotive? The Reading T1s. With the track.
Originally looked at 611, by the way.
Yeah, he actually.
Yeah, that's true.
There actually were plans
I think
for.
they also considered Southern Pacific 5021.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
But yeah. But either way, Ross Roland, in order to, well, basically restore one of these in an instant, he bought two of them, and those two being 2100 and 2101. 2101 was restored in a record time of 30 days.
Holy shit!
30 days.
Well, technically, a certain Connie was restored in just 27 days, but that's besides the point.
Fuck Connie.
It's just another Connie! Anyway.
Late Saturn is from May 18 by the Grand Canyon Railway.
Okay,
But
but then again, Ryan.
But, 2101
it's bigger, so that's kind of better.
And of course, 2101 is an anthracite burner, which is a lot more complicated to restore. So, 2100 was used as a parts donor for 2101, in which the locomotive, because of those extra parts, was restored in just 30 days. And as the locomotive was actually being tested, it was still being painted. In which, the 2101 got a very beautiful American flag sort of paint scheme. Which, if you guys don't know, 2101 was actually the only steam locomotive from the Iron Horse Rambles that actually didn't operate in the Iron Horse Rambles. So afterwards, it did get a lot of fame. ironically, because, it's now the most famous T1 and the most debatable to return to service. But we're not talking about that. 2101 served Ross Rowland for many, many, many years, even after the American Freedom Train, in which 4449 had basically gone on with Dora McCormick and Texas and Pacific 610, which I'd actually like to talk about later, which basically went onto the Southern Railroad, where 2101 stayed with Ross Rowland, in which he used it for a couple of other excursions, such as, the famous... Try saying the name with me. Try it. Really?
American Freedom Train.
I just mentioned the American Freedom Train.
You mean the Chessie?
Yes, the Chessie Steam Special.
Oh yeah, Chessie Steam Special. Yeah.
Where the 2101 was given
his birthday at the B&O.
Yes. Well,
basically, he was approached by, I believe, William F. Howes Jr. I think he was a member, like one of the executives of the Chessie system, who gave him an offer that he just couldn't refuse. So basically, I believe, I think Howes was also one of the volunteers that worked on 2101, and well, he actually wanted to see that engine run on his own railroad under the Chessie system banner.
yeah.
And, the whole celebration would have been, tied around the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Museum and all that stuff. I think they actually did suggest at one point, suggesting, some display cars for the train from, like, exhibits from the B&O Museum, but, that never came to fruition.
But anyway.
The engine went through, across the whole fucking system to, like, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and what is it again?
But yeah, 2101, when she was painted up for the Chessie Steam Special, she was actually painted in a rather agreeable, beautiful paint scheme, in which the smoke box, for the first time on a Reading T1, it was actually made gray, in which the locomotive...
I think it did.
What was that?
Many rail fans have commented negatively about the Chessie
What is that?
system paint scheme for the B&O birthday trip. And personally, while it was somewhat garish and unusual, I think it did its job. Because the purpose of the train was to celebrate the B&O's birthday to the general public, not to us dyed-in-the-wool rail fans. And Franklin Carr, then the Chessie system public relations head in Cleveland, and his people, along with Bob Lorenz, came up with the paint scheme, both the color scheme and the logos. And I think on balance, as much a departure from tradition as it was, I think it was very effective and did a great job. Unusual as it was, I think it was a good-looking train.
Yeah.
And how about that new front end look?
When we redid the T1 in Birmingham, Alabama for the second leg of the American Freedom Train, personally, I always thought the T1s in their original Reading garb were rather plain Jane looking. And so it's my fault, or credit, as you will, for having moved the headlight and adding the eagle and the number boards and the class lights and all that stuff. One man's opinion, but since it was my engine, that was the opinion that counted.
But yeah, anyway, as we said, painted up in a rather unusual but beautiful paint scheme, the 2101 hauled the train. It's gained quite the reputation for being in that livery. Well, for some reason, the Chessie Steam Specials paint scheme actually is more famous than the American Freedom Train livery, which to me is kind of ironic. But anyway, after the Chessie Steam Special... After the Chessie Steam Special, it was stored in around...
Something real quick.
What?
And U.S. locomotives, as you can see, 2101 briefly visited the G Railroad.
The Gettysburg?
Oh, you mean the screenshot you posted earlier before the stream?
Oh yeah, the Gettysburg
Okay, but
predicted the future of both those Connies.
anyway, though, after that, well, the 2101 was stored in a roundhouse, but unfortunately, that roundhouse caught fire, and the locomotive was seriously damaged. In which, well,
Spontaneous combustion.
basically, yeah, the steam locomotive was damaged beyond economical repair and has been deemed multiple times to never run again. And well, currently it's at the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Museum, which is actually, it's been cosmetically restored, but she will never look the same again.
Up the same number.
But have you guys actually ever realized something?
Every night.
Every locomotive that has ever been to the Gettysburg has been through some sort of catastrophic failure. I mean, look at 2102, look at 2101, look at 3254, look at 1278. What else went to the Gettysburg unbeknownst to me?
Mississippi in 76, that one Connie on the far left. And then the middle, that's the 38, that was moved to the Knox and Kane, and I think that was involved in a roundhouse fire after the railway shut down in 06 or something like that.
Yeah, that's just, I think
And
that's just,
76 is now by another B&O museum. So yeah, that's what I meant by predicting the future by 2101.
I think that the Gettysburg is cursed. That's what I think it is. It's cursed. But anyway, now, well, what happened to 2100? It was actually bought by the owner of Lionel Trains from Ross Rowland, in which the owner of Lionel Trains restored it to running condition and sold it off again. But you guys already.
Oh,
You do remember his name, don't you?
where's that clip again? Video.
not
Coon.
yeah, it was Richard something I knew, but
Oh, here we are. Let me look here.
In the meantime, though,
I think Ross was actually involved in the organization that restored 2100.
Corporation, which in 1988, he was old friend in T1484, number 2100, on a thorough $1 billion overhaul. As shown here, mention made to Teflon on the Winchester and Western. Presently still accessible and available for sale.
Yeah, this video was made the Ross Road video was made in the 2000s when 2100 was, I think, still in ownership of Tom Paine.
Oh, yeah, your favorite Canadian man, Andrew.
And auction in 1990.
The 2100 was sold off to probably the worst person who could have gotten his hands on an anthracite coal burner. And of course, that's Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine, literally, like Thomas Paine. Don't you think those two things are a bad sign? One, Thomas. Two, Paine.
Also, I think that when it was running tests in Ontario, St. Thomas, Ontario, it used a N&W caboose for some reason. It had, it also had a, what is it? Shit, what is it again? God, oh, what the fuck was it again? It had a weird Vanderbilt auxiliary tender and a, you know what I'm trying to say.
It did.
Canada for you. Lol.
But, yeah. And then after 2100 was converted to quote-unquote burn oil, which, it barely could burn it, because two reasons. One, Thomas Paine didn't do it correctly. Two, even if you did do it correctly, an anthracite coal burner will not burn oil because of how the firebox is designed. It's too big to actually absorb the heat from the oil to actually properly heat the water. Because otherwise, if you converted an anthracite coal burner to burn oil, it would have to continuously use that oil for hours and hours and hours, and you'd have to constantly refill. It just would not be economic. It would just be pointless. But yeah, and then after that, it was sold to the Tacoma Sightseer Excursions in Washington, and then we know the story from there. It was stored outside for about 7 years. And then, of course, in 2015, the locomotive was bought by the American Steam Railroad in which, they, of course, bought the locomotive and transported it for the first time in a while on a flatbed, which is actually a very rare thing to see nowadays. They actually, they lifted up the 2100 and put it onto a flatbed, in which they
It's
transported
more
it.
common than you think in other countries.
In other countries, yes, but in America, that's a very rare thing. And so, it went to its new home in Cleveland, Ohio, at one of the original B&O roundhouses, in which in the other stall is the home of Grand Trunk Western 4070. But yeah.
And since we're talking about 2100, while we still are, what if instead of the going Pacific Railroad, well, you probably know the Photoshop I made by now.
I don't think I do.
Look at Brain Subjects.
I've already seen that.
Let's see. Oh!
The Grand Canyon Scenic Railroad! Yeah.
Tell me that doesn't look any...
There's a problem. It would still have to be an oil burner, but it would use recycled vegetable oil. It smells like French fries, motherfucker.
Tell me that doesn't look any better
It looks
than a
better.
main look.
It looks better, but it would perform worse.
And of course, Strass is here.
But anyway, though, now, Jim, it is time for you to talk about Ross Roland,
Oh, yeah, Roland's last great stand.
which I shall put away.
What exactly? Oh, yeah. So, it was 1979, and, the 2100 the 2101 had just suffered spontaneous combustion.
Spontaneous
So, of course, Ross
combustion!
was looking to find another northern type locomotive for his next big plan, the Chessie Safety Express, which was going to be another rolling exhibition train to educate the public about grade crossing safety. So he threw a casual glance at the B&O Railroad Museum in Baltimore, Maryland, and he saw a particularly handsome-looking northern-type locomotive, even though it wasn't called a northern by its respective railroad.
Yeah, they were called Greenbriers, after the Greenbrier
You
Hotel.
guessed it. It was the last remaining C&O J3, number 614. Obviously, because it's me talking, I feel like I have to do a little bit of history on the class. The Greenbriers were classified as they actually came in 3 classes: J3, J3A, and J3B. Between the 3 classes, there were 12 of them built between 1935 and 48.
Jim?
What?
Jim, look outside. Look what I see outside and outside the shed in Gmod.
Oh. Oh dear. Anyway, now I have to. Oh god, he used full on black. But anyway, back to what I was telling you guys. There were 12 of the C&O Northerns, or Greenbriers, built between 1935 and 48. You had 5 regular, like the J3s and J3Bs were kind of thrown together because they were collectively numbered 600 through 606. So you had 5 regular J3s numbered 600 through 604, and then 2 J3Bs numbered 605 and 606. And all 7 of these were actually named after Virginian statesmen. They were actually some of the very few American steam locomotives to carry names that were, I believe, painted on the sand domes. Or maybe they might have been actually separate number plates. But it's a little bit difficult to tell. But anyway, then the J3As, they were kind of their own separate thing. There were 5 of them numbered 610 through 614. In terms of tractive effort, they are actually slightly different from each other. But I'm only going to mention the J3As, though. Weirdly, they're actually the least powerful of the bunch. You got 74-inch diameter driving wheels, boiler pressure of 255 psi, and 27.5 by 30-inch cylinders, just two of them, by the way, for a total tractive effort of 66,453 pounds. So, yeah, it's not the strongest Northern ever. I'm sorry, Greenbriers. I'm terribly sorry in case there are any diehard Southern CNO enthusiasts out there who feel absolutely disgusted whenever I accidentally use the name Northern 484 locomotive, even though that isn't technically what they all are. But anyway, the 614 is the only survivor, and it was retired in 1955 and then retired again a little later when it was briefly reactivated and renumbered in 611 for whatever reason. We'll get it. I know.
Or in the 50s.
Potomac Northerns, one of those numbered 614 that was leased to the CNO, whatever. So ultimately, the 614, while it was still numbered 611, it ended up on the storage tracks near the old diesel shops in Russell, Kentucky, where it was uncertain whether or not the locomotive would be preserved, but of course it did end up being preserved. And it was moved in 1975 to the B&L Railroad Museum in Baltimore. And then in 1979, Ross traded the spontaneously combusted 2101 for the 614, so he could have a crack at doing at rebuilding that locomotive. It worked. Then in 1980, the locomotive was used for a year-long trip around the Chessie system for the previously mentioned Chessie System Express. Safety Express, sorry. But, yeah. Then, when the tours ended in 1981, a few years of nothing. And then in January and February of 1985, the locomotive roared back to life, briefly renumbered 614T with a bunch of extra decals and testing equipment. Because, this time the locomotive was going to be used for hauling loaded and empty coal trains on the new, across the New River Gorge between, I want to say, Huntington and Hinton in the state of West Virginia. And it was also fitted with a bunch of sensors and scientific equipment that will be recording and collecting data.
Because Ross Rowland
helped Ross with the development of the Ace 3000, which was a weird-ass idea to try and build a new coal-fired locomotive from the ground up in order to reduce the country's dependence on foreign oil. But then oil prices dropped and the railroads dropped their support. Even if the locomotive did perform really well during those tests. Then a few more years of nothing. And then I
the Railroad Museum again.
Yeah, and then it was dressed up with some gaudy blue side skirting. I don't want to talk about that.
No, we have to talk about it. It was basically, Ross had another project called the 21st Century Limited, wherever the fuck that picture is. God, where's it? Oh, here we are. Let me see here. Copy link. It was basically, I don't even know what it was supposed to be, but here it is. His concept for it.
Steven, I hate you because it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Oh, wait, that's just a painting, but the actual locomotive was infinitely worse than that.
Well, at least it would be with a centered headlight.
Oh, here we go. Here it is. Here it is. I'm going to post a picture of it. Funny thing is, it was not a purist pleasing pussy rocket. It actually had, a centered headlight. And I have no shame in showing you that picture, Jim. No shame at all.
I don't see what's so bad about.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
Thanks. I hate it.
And of course, my PC is a little bit glitchy or slow, so I can't actually fucking. I can't upload the sound clip of Billy Harrington screaming.
Oh, okay.
That's how I feel about that. I don't like it at all.
Okay, now I have to say this. it just goes to show that, the only advantage of like diesels is they're cheap. They're just cheaper. Okay, that's why the railroads dropped their support when oil prices drastically lowered out of nowhere.
It's because they're cheap. They're cheap to maintain. They're cheap to build, but they're not good. I mean, yeah, they're okay, but they're not strong. They're not very fast. They're not what a
One
train.
way for them to be strong if they're all coupled together and controlled by one engineer.
Yeah, but that's the big difference. You need like 3 units to have the equivalent to one steam locomotive.
Also, what was I gonna say? Fuck. Good no cheap, cheap no good, as I always say. Good things aren't usually cheap, and cheap things aren't usually very good.
Yeah. So
Here's the picture of the P&O 614.
Anyway, to get back on the good stuff.
yeah,
And in the late 1990s, I believe he was planning to do some sponsoring for like some new railroad museum that was being built or whatever. And he had the 614, pull several commuter style excursions, back and forth trips between Fort Jervis, New York, and Hoboken, New Jersey, across New Jersey Transit trackage. And this is where he really started to unleash locomotives' speed. Literally. The Mad Blood freaking went 70 or 80 miles an hour on bits of track where apparently he was only allowed to go 60.
wait, it was only 60?
Passenger cars. Modern passenger cars.
Yeah. God damn it, my computer's being glitchy as fuck. God damn it, this is bad. But basically, also, like, like at some point, I believe the locomotive had 2 light modifications that were actually carried out separately from each other for whatever reason. On some of the trips, I believe it was wearing ditch lights, and then in other trips, you may have noticed that the bell was actually raised so that it would actually sit in more between the lighted number boards.
Which Jim
did both.
Which Jim says that the locomotive with the raised bell looks the best.
Yeah, but for me, it would look truly the best if it also still had those ditch lights, because they kind of remind me of low headlights on the buffer beam of European steam locomotives. I'm European.
Jim, whenever I'm looking at the boiler on your 614 model, it has like flickers with like coal texture.
Yes, my PC, my game fucking froze up. I'm trying to fix it, so I may actually have to very quickly try to do a forced shutdown and hope to God that I don't shut down my PC entirely. So I'm actually going to rejoin the voice channel through my mobile phone. In 3, 2, 1.
Well, I guess how about we take this moment while Jim is doing that to take a look at the stream chat. Let's see. Christopher Trains Productions says, I love trains too. I have videos. Wait, no, that's Elijah.
Oh God.
Whoever this Michael is, he's not watching it, is he?
I don't know.
Hopefully not.
I don't know, but I hope not. Let's see here. Are we going to talk about the... Yeah, we already did that. Richard Kuhn died in June of 2019, sadly, after we brought 2100 30 years ago in 1989.
Oh. And also Thomas Paine died in 2017.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Fuck you. Yeah, and
I'll tell you.
guys,
Let me find him.
Guys, be aware that in 2017 was when 2100 officially came to that roundhouse. So basically,
And here we are. We also get an idea of what he looked like.
so what I'm
Also,
imagining.
practically, I did have to shut down my PC, so the chance is very high that all my progress on the approximation of 14 is going to get lost.
So what I'm imagining is that Thomas Paine just had a heart attack when the 2100 went back to America and got
Wait,
converted.
it's still with me. Jim is still with. It is still with me. Would you like me to maybe
take an area dupe in case you have my prop protection.
Okay, this
wait,
one
I don't have your prop protection. Great.
614 go burr. What's the Discord name?
What is going to despawn? I'm already calling it.
Well, I think I have an idea, but I'm gonna have to.
How long has the stream even been going for?
For about 51 minutes.
Okay, so about an hour.
Yeah. But let's see here. So I am going to send an invite for some people here to allow to join the Burning Subjects Discord server. Well, it's not Burning Subjects, but it's the Steam Stars headquarters.
Not gonna invite Monkey, are you?
Oh my god.
No. It says like I'm out.
Okay, I highly take that back. I mean it, don't invite him. Really, he's... No.
Yeah, I mean, that joke was way too easy. I mean, it's not his fault that he sounds like that because he's from Bulgaria, but whatever.
Bulgaria, more like Bulgaria. Ha 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 ha. But
Andrew.
What?
You're playing with fire. Yes, who's also from Bulgaria.
Oh.
Nina.
And of course,
definitely Bulgarian.
And of course, Strauss is right next to our shed with his shitty diesels. I don't know what kind of diesels those are, but they're stupid looking.
Andrew, do you have micro protection, or can't you go into Gmail right now?
I can't go into Gmail because otherwise the...
Crap. So, in other words, the 614 is going to despawn pretty soon. And I didn't save any of the progress I did on it.
Well, could you by chance still...
What?
Could you still finish off the 614 in this stream?
No, because my PC is still starting up.
Well, you can still, like, tell us what...
What do you mean? Oh, you mean the 614 segment?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, after those ships in 1997 and 98, there was another long-ass period of inactivity. I believe it was then stored, partially disassembled at the Reading and Northern Railroad in Pennsylvania. And then I believe in the early 2010s, it was moved to Roanoke, Virginia, to sit side by side next to NW 611 at the Virginia Museum of Transportation, where he was joined. Chris Shane's production. Who is this?
Hello. I was the person that was talking in chat.
I recommend that you don't. I recommend that you don't actually.
Anyway, I'm still in the middle of explaining my story. But yeah, it sat next to 611 there, I believe, for some kind of exhibition of two J-class Northerns of rivaling railroads next to each other or something. I don't know what.
1218.
What?
Santa Claus 1218.
Yeah, but like, I don't know what that exhibit was called. But meanwhile, yeah, the 614 sat next to 611 for a bit, kind of like big rivals or something. And then it was moved to the Sino Heritage Center in Clinton Port, Virginia. And in 2000, and also in the early 2010s, I believe in preparation for like the 2012 season or whatever, it was repainted green for a canceled excursion called the Greenbrier Presidential Express. The main reason why it was ultimately canceled was because of particularly tough logistics and finances or whatever. So, yeah. And since then, the locomotive has sadly remained in that scheme ever since. Emphasis on sadly because, personally, I don't like it. I like it in all black. Also, extra tragedy, they lowered the bell so it doesn't sit neatly between the lighted number boards anymore. And I don't like the gap there.
And what about Yellow Central Express?
Yeah,
That's the weird thing with that is the weird thing about 614 is that, you know, the engine has spent more time in storage than under steam.
Yeah, that's true.
2100. 2100. First time?
Yeah,
Because,
that joke was inevitable.
yeah, seriously. 2100 is one of those examples that has spent more time in storage or being transported than in operation at all. And yet you say 614. I mean, 614 is even more loved by fans. But no one cares about 2100. They care about 2102 or 2101 because they've operated the most. But care about the prototype because, you know, it was the first. It's the oldest. It is the veteran. It is.
It looks the best with its visored headlight when it was in its
Yes.
days.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course, you had to mention the visored headlight because, by the way, for those Reading purists who say that the visored headlight doesn't look good and should be taken up, you can stick it up your ass.
And have you ever shown that Photoshop of 2100 to your camera?
The Photoshop?
Yeah, the Grand Canyon Railway Photoshop.
I don't think he can do that because I don't think he can aim his webcam at the monitor or whatever.
Or at least with his phone.
It's a weird thing how it is. But that's mainly what we have about Ross Rowland now. But actually, has there been any recent act? Oh yeah, that's right. Ross Rowland helped to raise money for 2100.
Well, there's more stuff about 614.
And mention another thing. Didn't Ross Rowland plan to convert 614 to burn natural gas?
No.
There was a plan for his Yellow Ribbon Express, which I believe is also canceled.
And apparently, he thinks all steam locomotives should burn coal, and that's why he backstabbed at the Union Pacific.
But honestly,
That's the moment where I lost a little bit of respect for Ross.
yeah, because I mean, Ross Rowland, yes, he's a nice guy when it comes to bringing steam locomotives back and running them into the greatest of history, but that's too far. Saying a steam locomotive isn't a steam locomotive because it burns oil is just wrong. I mean, yes, I was complaining about 2100 burning oil, but that's because it can't run at all on oil.
What's stupid is he almost converted to 614 to burn natural gas
Which
instead of coal.
Which I think is pretty hypocritical. It's pretty hypocritical, don't you think?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
Ross
let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. If I had the money, I would refurbish 614 and I would convert it to burn oil. Not just to piss off the most orthodox of CNO purists, but also, you know, with a more logical reason, saying that every lump of coal that this locomotive doesn't have to burn can go to other coal-fired steam engines or coal-fired power plants.
Yeah.
Besides, I wasn't going for heavy fuel oil, but rather I would go for recycled engine oil. Or
Where is Tiny Cars?
Follow the footsteps of the Grand Canyon or the Union Pacific.
Look at what's happening in the chat. Where is Tiny Cars?
Wait,
Tiny car. How about it just?
Andrew, where is Tiny Car?
Boom. Memes. Tiny car, mate.
Well, I don't have a tiny car, but I do have this tiny truck, Mike.
Meanwhile, I have. That's a tiny pickup truck. That's not a tiny car.
It's a tiny truck, yeah.
Tiny truck, mate.
what about Tiny Car on Rails? I showed you right before this stream started.
Okay, but
Wasn't there ever discussions of Ross Roland getting 1218?
Really?
was it?
there? I don't know. There was some talks of some people, but I'm pretty sure they're just stupid
You're
rumors.
gonna have to show something like proof, like a website that shows it.
PC.
Well, it was just a rumor back then.
And I guess that by now the 614 has despawned in Gmod, hasn't it, Stephen?
Yeah.
And of course, my PC is so slow that Steam won't fire up right now.
Hardware.
Let's get into your damn PC. When the fuck are you gonna get paid? Just find a really good PC with a lot of RAM. That way the game does not lag.
My brother advised me on getting a flippin' new SSD drive or something.
Okay, but for the people who would like to actually be on our Steam Star headquarters Discord server, in the live chat, I have posted a link, which is an invite to the. But keep in mind, you are not allowed to actually join in on the chat unless I actually, unless you've either contacted me about it or you have, shown to me that in one way or another you can actually participate with this with the knowledge. But yeah.
Well, I know a lot by myself, which you guys haven't mentioned in these streams before. Like,
But that's why we invited you. That's why we invited you, because you are a good contender for this stream. But are there any final thoughts before we go for this week?
Well, I guess when it comes to overall, overall verdicts on what Ross really is in the steam locomotive community, you have people who achieved great things, and they're kind of seen as legends. But some would say that Ross wouldn't be one of them. He was barely a one-shot wonder, because he operated so many locomotives over the years, but he couldn't seem to keep even one of them properly maintained or in service for a very long time or whatever.
I was actually about to say something about that, because if I had to choose between Dor McCormick and Ross Roland, I would go with my good boy Dor McCormick, because name one locomotive that he has helped restore that isn't running anymore.
Sorry if I sound stupid. I wanted to say 3985, but I don't know if he actually worked with the old UP Steam team.
Sorry, he
but
didn't.
He was very good friends with him.
He didn't work on the 3985. Sorry. But here are a couple
That explains a lot.
Here are a couple. Wait,
but
guys.
Has he ever worked with, what was his name again? Ed Dickens. Will McCormick friends with Ed Dickens?
I'm not 100% sure, but Doyle was good friends with the previous UP Steam team under the head of Steve Lee.
Well, guys, these are a couple of locomotives that Dor McCormick has restored that are still operating. I mean, one is obviously 4449.
No shit.
Yeah, and another is of course, number 19, that 28, the logging Mikado.
You're forgetting Spokane, Portland, Seattle 700.
Well, they're actually getting that one up and running, aren't they?
Yes.
And what's another
That was run previously.
2100 has also been given a lot of help from Dora McCormick when it comes to finding people who can make stables and welders.
We also have UP number 3203, I believe in its original identity as Oregon Shortline or something.
Oregon Rail Navigation.
Yeah. And 765 is one of the big ones that Dora McCormick helped on.
What? Was this during 2009 Train Festival?
Wait, are you guys serious?
During this time?
You guys didn't know Dora McCormick helped on the 765?
No.
He was there from the very beginning. He was the one who got to pull the throttle for the first time when they pulled her out of the park.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
How did you guys forget Dora McCormick helped with the 765?
Oh, I did? No, I just forgot.
Everyone.
Goddamn, I need to find the goddamn sound effect.
Yeah. Well,
I need to find it, goddammit.
In a nutshell,
am I the only one who thinks, I hate to go off topic, but am I the only one who thinks that 6988 is the most overrated out of all of the Chinese locomotives in America?
I'm more of a 142 person.
I feel like 6988 is more like a middle ground, you know?
God damn it. Oh.
But, I mean, I still don't understand.
It's apparently the easiest QJ to like, because if I'm not mistaken, it's the only one that's at least operational.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like the same kind of problem with 475, you know? It's the only one operating, so it's easy to like.
You also have 3025.
Oh, yeah.
Which was built for the Knox and Kane. I like it better in its Knox and Kane as 1658.
I just still can't understand how you guys couldn't remember that Dora McCormick worked on 765. I don't understand.
I don't understand either.
Probably a bit foggy.
Sort of remembered it.
Maybe Steven doesn't want to remember it because there we go. Fucking hell! I only meant that once.
Did Dora McCormick ever worked with Steam Railroading Institute at 1225?
I mean, Dora McCormick actually worked with them, yes. Because, well, not really worked with them, but they were close friends. That's how they got that beautiful, like really beautiful photo of the 1225, 765, and 4449 all together. It's because Dora McCormick made that happen. So
well, if I'm not mistaken, Owen said 4449 was just substituting for 261. Kind of like how I'm substituting for Lena right now.
Well, you know what I mean. Dora McCormick has been a great help when it comes to the railroad community. And, well, he's a literal professional. And that's why I look up to him so much, because he's able to, you know, get the locomotives running and keep them running for years and years and years and years. And that's why I respect him so much. Well, Ross Rowland... Sorry. As I was saying, that's why I respect Dora McCormick so much, because, you know, as I said, he gets them running and then he keeps them running for as long as possible. I'm pretty sure that the locomotives that he restored, even after he's gone, or even we're all gone, they'll either be running or in great condition. So, either way, that was this week's episode of Bunning Subjects, and tune in...
Was Ross Rowland ever involved with the Age of Steam Roundhouse, or at least with our Ohio Central?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But,
bombshell. Content.
Yes. And
thank you so much for watching. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. And tune in next week, where we actually might be talking about some more distant locomotives, in which we're going to be talking about some UK locomotives for a change. So we will see you.
I got several great ones already in mind.
But keep in mind,
M10 Railway 29. I'm working on that Wikipedia article right now still.
keep in mind, as I said, though, because, you know, this is next week is going to be a top 10 list. So try guessing what the top 10 list is going to be in the comments, because as I said, it's related to United Kingdom locomotives. So put them in the comments, and we will see you guys next